different groups of people have different perspectives on the same truth. And from your perspective, it may appear that it's a different truth. And just as a human being can break out of their own ego, a group is also able to break out of the group ego. You see, how we act as individuals and how we uh, behave as individuals reflects in how we behave in a group. So here, let me load up a little demonstration here. Let's see if we can get this window going. And we'll capture a window. Alright. Cool. So let's see if I can shrink myself here and explain this to you guys. Cool. Okay. So you've got, your typical social circle, and they call it a social circle for a reason. And we'll just call this group 1. They call it a social circle. It's not a mistake, because a social circle really is a circle, and if you don't understand that, maybe you should socialize more. But it really, really is a circle. And you know what? I'll explain why a social circle is a circle. You have your let's just say you have a group of friends, right? Okay, well, out here on the edge, you've got Johnny, who, he shows up to some of the parties, but in reality, he's more of a fringe friend. He's definitely not, maybe he's got other friend groups. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's part of, this second group too, right? And he's, moving back and forth between these two social circles. So you got Johnny on the edge of group 1, and then at the center of group 1 you've got Billy, who shows up to every gathering. You got Billy and Tim or whatever, and these two guys make up group 1, and we'll say we got Bob too, because why not? And you got, they make up the group, the core of the group, the center of the group. They basically founded the social group or friendship. Something happened to these 3 people to make them be such close friends. Or maybe it was just proximity. Maybe they had a good time. Who knows? So you have your fringe, your people on the fringe of the group, and then you have your core group. And that's why they call it a social circle, because it expands outward like a web. And so you have your first group 1. So let's just say that instead of a group of friends, we could expand this to being something much, much larger, much, much deeper as well. We could say that group 1 represents something like Christianity. Okay. So at the core of group one, you have, you've got your Christian beliefs, you've got your Bible, your text, right? And there's a belief set that the text implies, which these people deem to be, it's what they call truth. And it is. It is truth. It's their truth. And then you got group two over here. So group two, we'll just say that that's another religion, some other. We'll call it some fake religion. I don't know. Fake religion. It's probably a little bit real, but we'll just call it fake religion. And we've got our people in here too, whatever. And, you have your people on the fringes as well. So, the people deep in either one of these groups are less capable of seeing the perspective of the other group as the fringe people are. And the reason for that is because the people on the fringe of a group have less ego invested in that group. So, we've got, Tom on the very edge of this group, and we've got, Chris on the edge of this group, and they can relate with each other. They can relate with each other despite being members of potentially opposing groups, right? We'll say that this is the line of opposition. We don't cross that line, right? Like you don't bring a Bible into like a temple, like that's just, you don't cross that line. You don't cross that. Why don't we cross that line? Why don't we cross that line? But we don't. It's completely unacceptable. Do not cross that line, right? Yet we have Tom and Chris here who are nearly crossing the line. They are this close. Maybe they're close friends. Who knows? So, what's the bigger picture? The bigger picture is that there's actually something out here, and it is also a circle, but we'll get to that later. That is the capital T truth, and neither of these groups get it. You see, they're just in view of it. You see, group 1 and group 2 are not touching this. Or maybe they are. Maybe they have some line. Maybe there is a sliver of truth. But they're looking at it from different perspectives. Group 1's looking at it from the left. Group 2's looking at it from the right. And maybe we even have, G3 over here, group 3, and they've got a line in too. They've got some access too. But each one, from the perspective of the innermost group, like these innermost members, these dedicated members, these people who have their egos attached to their line of truth, right? So these two people believe that this is the end all be all line. They believe that the connection to the truth is the truth. But that's just not the case. And these people, They believe that their connection to truth is the truth. And that's the fundamental flaw. You see, we want to own truth. And even in groups, we want to control the truth. When in reality, the truth is immutable. So what does immutable mean? It's actually a word that I picked up from programming. Programming, you can modify memory through variables. So, you can modify the memory of the computer through variables. And essentially, when a variable is said to be immutable, it means that the contents of the variable cannot be changed. So essentially the variable is unchangeable. Of course you can change it, but you can always modify computer memory. But the concept is that you won't, you shouldn't, or you don't provide the program a means or a way of changing that variable. So essentially the truth in this case is immutable, and all we can do is read from it, or all we can do is observe it from our perspective or from our group perspective. And this boils down to the individual as well. Like you can have so you have these group truths, but you can also have individual truths too. So like two different individuals could have a line into the truth, and these two people will actually disagree with each other on certain topics, despite reading from the same truth. Despite this brings up like a really crazy idea that every single person's perspective is valid. And people really don't want to accept that. Valid, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean right, because at the end of the day, when you believe that your observation of the truth is the truth, you're just wrong, because you're only looking at this is a lowercase t truth. This is a lowercase t truth, right? These are all lowercase t truths. These lines of observation are all lowercase t truths. They're all simply derivatives of this larger truth. So essentially, everyone has access to this, but no one is at the center of truth. The only way to get to the center of this truth is to basically delete the ego. So if you delete your ego death, as some people call it, you can actually, what you start to realize is that like this lowercase t truth gets closer and closer and closer. You get closer and closer and closer until you're absorbed into it. In which case, so we can think about this circle as a place that like bodies can't pass through or minds can't pass through. And once you cross this edge of truth, or you don't cross it at all, actually. Once you leave yourself behind at this edge of truth, you get access. And it's only through, and when I say you get access, I don't mean that you get access. I don't mean that at all. I mean that you merge with it and you realize that you are an extension of it. And this is getting highly spiritual, so you might not completely understand, but if you did something like meditated for 10 days straight in complete silence, and practiced Vipassana meditation, you would probably come upon this. And I mean, you could reach this through psychedelics. You could reach this through plenty. You could this process of getting closer to the truth through through meditation, more or less, is there's multiple avenues, is what I'm saying. There's multiple strategies to get closer to the truth. So, long story short is that these groups don't mean anything. And your individual perspective also means nothing. And if you think that if you feel strongly about a truth, you're not going to listen to this at all. You're already shut off from this reality, but this video is not for you. This video is for the people who already have gathered that something about society is wrong. Something about the way we organize in groups is wrong. This video is for someone who maybe feels like they're an outsider in the world. Someone who maybe doesn't understand why no one else understands. And I promise you that you are not alone. And I promise you that it is as bad as you think. No one's going to tell you that. No one's going to tell you that it's actually as bad as you think. No one's going to tell you that it gets harder. But what I'm also going to tell you is that it's still worth it. It's absolutely still worth it. Don't let a truth like this upset you. Don't let a truth like this make you feel like life isn't worth living. And when you see people in these lower truths or these lower realities, do not hate them. Do not disdain them. Simply show them the truth. If you know the truth, simply show them the truth. And if you know the truth, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you don't, well, then I suggest learning something like Vipassana meditation, taking a psychedelic, doing something to break out of your own paradigm, doing something that will open you up. You know, you don't have to do DMT. You don't even have to do acid or mushrooms. You could do MDMA. MDMA will totally blow you out, socially speaking, and then all of a sudden you'll realize that you'll realize how people respond when you output positive energy, and you'll see that positive energy reflect back at you. And if you're a if you are a discerning user and a responsible user, you will not waste that opportunity.